Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, or good night, wherever you are. Welcome to Segue Saturday number 4. This time I actually know which number we're on. And today's subject is going to be on strange faces, negative places. Joel was the one who picked the topic. That's why we had to wait for him to get back from Hawaii. Guilt trip, Hawaii. Ooh, boogie, boogie. Because none of us get to go to Hawaii, huh? So, been waiting on this topic because it's actually one that comes up quite often, and believe it or not, actually came up in 2 people I was helping over the last, say 3 weeks, because I've been a little busy behind the scenes with people who have reached out to me. Now, their stories are not cleared for me to talk about, so I'm not going to name names or say who was getting what help, but decided that I should probably tell you about what did occur behind the scenes. Pardon me, generally speaking, because it was quite interesting. In my life, whenever I needed assistance, Joel could literally say, okay, I'll send you my help, and then go crash and go to sleep, go to bed. And I was getting help. Never had that happen before with anybody else. And so I'm going to tell you the story in order of occurrence so that you can hear how cool this is. Now, Joel's working, or he was in Hawaii. I can't remember which one it was, but wasn't able to get to him and ask for assistance. But plus, this wasn't a situation I think he was going to be any more helpful than I could be, because there was somebody who had reached out that was dealing with an attachment on a loved one, and I needed to get it pulled away. Now, the problem with that is that with what Joel and I know how to do is actually dropping an entity into a quandary. Now, they can't come back because there's no attachment to a physical form. That's a requirement to come back from learning something. Otherwise, they have to move on. And it's kind of a stopgap measure, sort of like dropping a person into a pressure tank. There's only one way out for a spirit, and which is to move on. But because they do have attachments to something that they physically laid hands on, such as a person on this side of the veil, it can cause a lot of discomfort when that person's detached. So I contacted Diane Swiger because I needed her help with trying to detach this thing painlessly, but she didn't respond, but I left her a detailed message. So I went out to the living room to sit in my chair and get ready to do what I needed to do. And I didn't know that she'd sent me a text message back saying something. I'm not going to say what it is just yet. So I move in on the entity from remotely and grab it like I normally would do and pull it away from the person. And as I'm moving it away, something strange happened. The entity, instead of thrashing about and resisting, suddenly became stunned like a deer in headlights and went from a dark color to a semi-translucent color, from a semi-translucent color to all white see-through, sort of like the spirits in that Final Fantasy schlock movie, the Spirits Within, or whatever that garbage was. The eyes of the creature went from black to dull gray to blue to golden, and then this thing starts to float away from my grasp, like in Tron, when they let loose the identity disc and it floats up almost angelically. And I realized that it was floating towards a spot in the heavens above us that was very brightly lit. I moved up towards it because I didn't have to hold on to this thing, and I was watching as it was drawn in. So I assumed that was it being moved on, something I've never done before. I get a text message from Diane Swiger saying that she was going to lend me her abilities. She was sorry she couldn't be there for me, etc. So I was stunned. I didn't even have to do more than just reach out, contact her, and it was there. So apparently we do work phenomenally well together when we are in a cohesive unit. Pardon me. So that was what I found very fascinating. Once again, never happened to me before with anybody but working with Joel ever. So it seems this might be exactly what you read in books about how when we get together, we are much more than the sum of our parts. Anyway, welcome to Segue Saturday number 4. Everybody can unmute themselves. Hello, Aisha. My son Trevor's on. Joel is here, fresh from the farmer's market with all his fresh organic produce.
And a slice of gluten-free quiche.
Cool. You're going gluten-free? That's I can't recommend that more highly than I have done in the past.
Yeah, this place is good stuff. Just saying.
Hi, Aisha. How's the family?
Yeah, I unmuted myself for a second, and I was like, "Oh, let me see." And it, when I went to check, see you muted me on the actual system. Also, I have this mute thing here. That's why I didn't press mute when you told me to press it the first time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, and Trevor's here too. This is his first segue. So, you know how kids are before noon. They're kind of. Okay. So now, Joel, you're the one in charge of this topic because you said you wanted to talk about it.
I said we need to talk about it. Yeah, we kind of do. So
take it away.
So let's talk about that kind of stuff. So in our everyday lives, we generally put ourselves in to different situations, you know, depending on where you are, what you do for a living, and just your area that you live in. And I've been noticing there's like a lot of people that has been saying like they've been feeling lack of energy, or some people that have just been having issues, like they feel like maybe they go to work and like 2-3 hours in they feel drained. One thing that a lot of people don't think about is it's like how our environment affects us. You know, we get ourselves into these environments, and that energy field that we're in affects us, and that's why it's important for people to ground themselves at the beginning of the day, ground themselves, and crystallize their aura so they aren't so easily influenced by things. And there are times when the place that you work at is just probably not good for you in general, and it might be time for you to move on. You got to kind of listen to that kind of stuff. You know, if you was thinking about getting a new job, but you like the people that you work with, but the work is affecting like your mood and your energy level, then it may be time to move away from that area or from that job, so to say. So we had a person who was doing that kind of work. You know, they are in a place where there's a lot of human tragedy, and they felt attacked all the time. And it just could be the fact that they're not necessarily being attacked, but it's just that energy, how it affects your aura, kind of brings you down. You got anything to say about that, Sean? Experience.
Well, there's also there's the converse as well, that it doesn't always mean that things are not attacking you too, because I used to work in places where there was a lot of negativity, and there's also places that you can work where the negativity builds up and becomes its own animal that it starts to want to feed on you. We've actually seen that, especially in the episode with the poop baggies on Ghost Adventures. I'm sorry. Where the hospital took on the negativity. Oh boy.
Oh, Jacob.
Like, because Joel said it's a thing. And it was feeding on the misery of the people who were huffing their own brand. Oh boy. Sorry. Trying not to laugh. It's not. Oh my gosh. So, yeah.
Way to go.
Okay. So sometimes those things can build up and become that negative. And and you don't want to be around when it reaches toxic mass. And I'm not saying that you should like dissipate it, because it's one of those things, if you can break it apart, sort of like too much tartar on your teeth, you should.
Or too big of a lump, you kind of had to break it apart. So
yeah. That's when you pull out the plunger and you start cracking it. Sorry, we have some terrible metaphors going through here now.
Oh my God.
Boy, that's bad. But it's truthfully, that's you have to realize that sometimes the negativity can become its own entity, and that happens with almost any place that has a ton of tragedy or human victimage or people who are unhappy that conglomerate in a particular area too.
Yeah.
And if the thing decides that it's collected enough mass that it's just going to start eating, then it just finds the people who are the most miserable and drives them downwards too.
Yeah.
Or it goes after the person who has the brightest light and starts feeding as well. It all depends on the environment. I've seen ones like that, and I used to have to work in an environment that was created by a guy who was like that. And it's really funny because this guy was a Scientologist. He was, nothing could make him happy. He was always defying. You could only get worse in his books. Never go up in his estimation. It's one of those people where it's like you're burning the candle wick lower. You're never going to be able to build up no matter what you do for him. And that kind of negativity does leach into the environment. And he had people coming in and going out of his workplace really fast because of it.
Yeah. And so we got to remember that. And, that's why it's like for people who are sensitive, you really got to take care of your energy body as well as your physical body. We forget that, a lot of people just want to take care of your physical body and think that's going to be enough. And normally, that makes it easier. If you're in good health, it makes it easier to maintain a good, healthy, it helps your energy flow and everything, but you got to protect that energy, your energy form as well. Most people forget, or most people don't realize that we are not only physical beings, but spiritual beings, which, when you talk about spiritual things, you're talking about energy. So, that's the main thing that I think we need to really, really remind each other about. And also we need to take time and do those things that replenish our spiritual being, be it hiking, swimming, drawing, just self-care. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. You got to do some self-care too, as well as do those exercises, do those breathing exercises, do the clearing.
And I should add experiences are the things that you do together, not the things that you do that happen. You have to go find the experiences. We wanted to go to the silent movie theater in Hollywood together sometime. That's an experience where that movie star sits in the front row and watches the old films. Forgot the ghost of him. That's one. Went with my family to Knott's Berry Farm. There's another experience right there. We had a great time there. Going to go there again for Christmas. You guys went to Hawaii. There's an experience. The experiences that replenish you are the ones that have to be done the most, and even little ones around the house. Like for me, I've got a wound that's been keeping me up. That's really bad, and when I couldn't stay, I know I can't stay awake. I put on a channel on my Apple TV called Pluto TV, and it's got this channel on this service called Slow TV, which shows cameras on trains going places in Norway, Germany, etc. Mostly Norway, and it's a wonderful experience to just turn this on, to kick up my legs in front of the TV and just fall asleep, and I dream about traveling, and it's so freeing. It's like when I was a kid again, and I'm able to direct my dreams. In my dreams now, over the last several days, I've been to India, parts of England. I never got to see Germany, and it's just been very rejuvenative. because I love trains. I don't like the idea of zipping places super fast. Trains sound great. Planes, not so much so, but trains have always been my probably my greatest weakness for wanting to travel, and I've been able to do it at the very least. Don't get mixed up between when I was in England and traveling on the underground with traveling on a train. It's as close to the being on a train as I guess any subway system in New York. They'll tell you there's just no similarities. There's none at all. Trevor, you got anything to say, son? I know you muted yourself, probably because you feel out of sorts.
Well, my stomach's not feeling so good. I don't really have anything to really input on the situation. I don't feel like I have enough experience.
Oh, any questions?
Not really. I mean, I'm getting it pretty well. It's experiences seem to affect any area, be it positively or negative, and not just an area, but a person. Obviously, areas affect people as much as people affect the area.
See, he gets it. I raised him with all of this stuff. Isn't it great? This is what happens when you raise a child with this all being normal. They get it. They just soak it in. It's not what we had to learn because nobody wanted to teach us. They just absorb because it's Tuesday. I love it. I'm very proud of you, Trev.
That was very good. That was pretty spot on there.
He's amazing. That's why I wanted to bring him on. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows how amazing I think he is.
Yeah.
Is that the same one that was on with us last time, or?
Yep, he was the one we were interviewing.
I'm still his son.
Yeah. No. She just wants to. She knows I've got two sons. It's just she's trying to keep them sorted because she doesn't know Eric too well.
Yep.
Eric's 7 years old.
When you introduced him just now, you said this is his first time coming on here, so that's what made me ask: is he the same one from the last time?
Yeah, well, that was Paranormals and Coffee. This one's the first Segue he's been on.
Okay.
And my youngest son, whenever he comes on, it's because he was trying to see what we're doing. He'd run in and chatter something so he could be on the show. But he's 7, and I was joking on Paranormal Portal that I just had the talk with little Eric, and Brent and Don are like, they look shocked. I said, no, not that talk. It's the paranormal talk. You have to eventually comes up. And then Don starts nodding sagaciously. He's like, oh, I get it. I know what you're talking about. So everybody was shocked for 2 seconds, except Don. It's like, no, I got it. Right. And he's nodding with his long beard. He got it right away. But it's like, it's the talk on paranormals and having to deal with the Forbidden Planet event where you have to worry about the id coming up. And got to convince Walter Pigeon he can't keep going to sleep. Id. No, seriously, man, that's what's going on here.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
It is funny that if you look long enough, you can find enough cultural stuff to talk about that allows everything to be easier to talk about, because everybody's got to have seen this, or at the very least, you can plonk them in front of the TV and go, watch this.
Yeah,
seriously, watch this. And like we were being asked the other day on the Facebook site about the animals, right? It's aren't they all psychic? No. So it's easier to appear to them than it is to most of us, but no, not really. And but they do get easily influenced by a nice warm aura. It's like Kiara and Zazu. I'm over there and they're both asleep on me. Only this last time it was just Kiara, because unfortunately we lost beautiful Zazu and his beautiful soul. But I fell asleep and you're like, oh yeah, Kiara was asleep on you. Really? How did I miss that? She weighs like 20 pounds. Like you were out. It's like, okay, I didn't think I was that far out.
She just nuzzle her head right on you. It was like, this, excuse my language, this bitch. Oh, she's too much.
And all the animals that they all tend to gravitate toward. If if you've got this kind of a soul, when the animals, they all like you a lot. Like, okay, to brag on Trevor a little bit, but this is a true story. Trevor and I love horses very much, and I told him stories about this horse that I'd rescued. And when we went to the Renaissance Fair in Corona, called Coronaburg, this is a shameless pitch for them because it's an amazing fair. Okay, you're gonna love it. It's German based. It's based on not on everything having to revolve around King Henry VIII or his daughter Elizabeth I. Okay, it's a lot more fun there. And the horse master who had these ponies had rescued a horse named Champion. Just a little pony. Got a picture of it. I would love to be able to put it up. And the horse was rescued from some really bad people. And I told Trevor about all the stuff that I'd done to make Carrot get reformed and less violent and more loving. And so he's like, well, can we bring Carrots for a Champion? I said, yeah, no problem. Because we would go 2 days out of every weekend, and we would go over and over. And it got to the point where all Champion had to do was see Trevor running up in his little blue costume, and he would stop dead. And there was no walking around in the circles anymore with the kids on it. Nope, it was done. That's my boy, and he's coming over here to give me treats or pet me, and that's that. And so it got to the point where I had to literally hand over dollars to this guy so that Champion would go around in circles until we left. And he said, no, thank you for, volunteering your son to ride the horse so that I can have the other kids ride on the other 3 horses. And this horse just, it wasn't the treats anymore. It was because it was him. And every year we'd come back, and every year Trevor would ride him, and he recognized him at on site. And when this we called maybe about 6 years ago to find out how the horse was doing, we had to get another phone number because the horse master was no longer taking care of the ponies. He had moved away, and his daughter had the ponies. And from her, we found out that Champion had passed on of a kidney disorder that was brought on by the bad feed that the original owners had forced him to eat. His kidneys had gotten infected, and they were constantly giving him antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic. And though it probably hurt to ride Trevor on his back, this horse, this little pony, would not ride without him when he was in sight. That's kind of a bond with just seeing him 1 or 2 days a weekend, once a year. That's the kind of bond that can form with a gifted person, because we give this a almost tangible warmth of love to these animals, and they bathe in it, and they learn to love it. And if they haven't learned to love it, they just immediately gravitate towards it. Years later, when we found out that Champion had passed on, Trevor and I wept inconsolably because that little pony didn't deserve to have a painful death like he did. Because when your kidneys go, it's not pleasant. I'll let the conversation get directed away from such painful things.
So what has everybody been doing? I mean, I've been a little bit busy. I know I've been just working, and I traveled a little bit, did a day trip to Reno. That was kind of fun. But what has everybody else been doing?
I've been working. And of course, I had several people that needed my help.
Aisha? You still there?
The only thing I've been doing is trying to get my as far as try and make a schedule of things that I need to do on a daily basis. So that way I can get my life back in order. So that's what I've been working on. I think I pretty much got it down pat. Now I got it written on paper. I got to do it now.
Okay, I don't know if anybody can see this, but can you see the horse and with me and Trevor?
Yep.
That is Champion right there.
Yes.
That's the pony right there. It was cute as a button. Trevor says he has to leave, unfortunately, because his stomach is really hurting him. I think it was all of the peppers that he had last night. So he's going to have to drop off the show. But all the same, this is Trevor and I and Champion.
I love the names of your the folders, the albums. Fae and Spirits.
Because we got it. That's a very large file right there. I've got a lot of
imagine.
I want to send some of these pictures to Brent and Dawn because they're like, oh yeah, we want to see this. Like, I got pictures for you. I got pictures for you. Like, such as the one where when Trevor was a little baby and my grandfather knew that Flash upset my eyes and I hated it. I would cry when everybody would take a Flash picture of me. If I could pull up the old files from my mom's house and digitize the pictures, you'd see all these pictures of me crying because people were taking really bright Flash photography. Because it's 1970s. They still hadn't figured out that brighter doesn't mean better. Just change the color of the Flash and you can get a better result. But they were putting as many lumens into those things as they could. And so my grandfather would actually physically block in spiritual form Karen taking pictures of Trevor. Well, you could see an arm in front of his eyes. You know, it's a dark band. People go, oh, shadow person. No, not shadow person. It's just my grandfather. You can't block a light if you're all made out of white mist. So, because I was there when she tried to take the picture and I saw him stick his arm and go in front of the Flash in order to cover his eyes. It was hilarious. I wasn't there for the other ones, but we had two pictures that did survive. We didn't even realize we had them in the boxes outside. We have negatives for the others, and I'd really love to be able to find somebody who could, on the cheap, put these in onto celluloid for me. Yeah, we went to, and over the summer, we not only went to Knott's Berry Farm, we went to the beach, went to Carpinteria, and it was a lot of fun there. There was with little Eric, we went to a place in Ventura that was one of the U.S. Parks reserves, which is for the Channel Islands. I did not know that California has its own breed of elephant seal. They're much smaller than the big ones, but they're no less feisty. And if you go up near Lompoc, you can actually see the darn things.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's up near Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of things. I actually found out what the breed of the oyster that I stubbed my toe on thinking it was a rock and pulled it out, and it was humongous. I had to look through a file on the darn things that the ranger pulled out for me to look at. I'm like, oh, it's this one right here. She says, oh, and how big was it? And I gave her the dimensions with my hand. She's like, wow, that must have been big. I said, it really hurt my foot. It was poking up partly out of the soil. I'm like, darn this friggin' rock. I'm like, I'm going to pull this rock out and I'm going to throw it farther out there so it can sink in the sand and nobody will stub their toe on it. And I pull it out. And it's an oyster. Big clam, right? Big clam. And even it opened up and stuck its foot out, right? Looking sort of like The Stuff from the movie The Stuff, looking around. So my first instinct was, whoa, right? Because it looked like the stuff from the movie The Stuff. Yeah. And then I was, it's just a clam. Unfortunately programmed by movies. And that was a good movie, by the way.
Yeah.
For people who haven't seen it, you definitely need to see it. It'll make you think twice about what you're putting in your mouth these days.
For sure. Man, that was a great movie. Oh, man. So I'm looking forward to this next week and month. You guys, so what we're going to be doing, we're going to be trying to put a podcast together, right?
Yes.
Next week.
Uh-huh.
And besides that, what else do we have planned?
Well, we're going to try to finish up the Paranormals and the Paranormal Hollywood. The one that I've already got scripted out. We just got to put in the can is the one on the Enfield haunting. And we're probably going to do the Entity and the one on the Dybbuk box which I've forgotten what the name of that one was, because the real story behind the Dybbuk box is way scarier than the film. They tried really hard, but they went off on a tangent. What amazes me is that Zach Bagans now owns that stupid box, and nothing. He's so frightened of it, he keeps it in the basement, closed up. You know, that same basement that what's her name, Bloody Mary, went down into. Yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah, because that's going to help everything.
Yeah,
let's just get it. Then I'm real freaked about it. Let's put it in the basement. No.
How about the guy is storing stuff in one facility. Like
oh, no.
He's storing all this stuff in one facility, like it's a nuclear waste facility that he's having people pay to visit. And you know, Karen's cousin Anita lives there, and they have to sign a waiver when they go in that they're not going to sue the daylights out of him if something decides to screw them up, right? And you can't take pictures of anything in there. So apparently it's all him all day, every day. And he knows that the stuff can get you. You even have to swear in front of him that you're not going to sue the daylights out of him for whatever it is that comes after you.
And I'm good on that.
Okay. Yeah, Karen's all, oh, let's go there. I'm like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's like you want to go to the ectoplasmic nuclear waste equivalent of Chernobyl? No, I'm good.
Yeah. if she asks you that again, just direct her to me. Direct that answer to me. I'll answer for you.
The whole idea of climbing in there is like, it's like, look at all this glowing green goop. I think I'm going to take a swim, and then you get out all surprised that you look like the guy at the in RoboCop that gets doused with the toxic waste. Like, that guy.
I was thinking Toxic Avenger.
You're lucky if you come out looking like the Toxic Avenger. He got to live.
True. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. I don't want to go anywhere like that.
It is quite funny that people do think that there is zero consequence to exposing themselves to some of this stuff, or that it will be a thrilling consequence. Over the last several weeks, I've had to help quite a few people that have come in contact with stuff they didn't even realize was dangerous. I mean, that is perfectly understandable, but going someplace on purpose to, I don't know, I guess tickle your thrill bone is the only thing I can come up with there. And it is beyond a bad idea, because of there's all these places you could go and have a good experience. There's all these places that do have a beneficial aura and have good things in it. And you want to go to the place where you saw Father Sebastian get knocked over by a mirror. Yeah. I don't dispute that was hilarity. It really was kind of funny, but it also at the same time is not, I don't know, what would you want to say? Something you want to experience yourself. If you want to go there and vicariously see it happen to somebody else, it means that some poor schlemiel is going to be getting the pie in the face, even if it's not you.
Yeah, I'm good on the thrill seeking aspects of things. Yeah, I would want to go. I would rather go to a place where I might receive a blessing rather than a spiritual foot in my ass.
Yeah, something that wants to crawl all over you.
Yeah, I'm good on that one. We've all seen the 70s, 80s slasher films. We know how that starts. Now I don't want to be that character.
Yeah, and we already discussed the 70s, 80s slasher original idea where one of them came from.
Yeah.
Oh, no, two of them. I'm sorry. I take that back, because we've actually talked about Ed. We've talked about Ed Gein. He was the inspiration for a great many of these guys, right? Like Hannibal Lecter. Oh shoot, Hannibal Lecter, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Leatherface. Oh my goodness, I can't even remember them all. But and we've already talked about where the original idea for the real boogeyman for Freddy Krueger came from, and that was another real one too. So these monsters are based on stuff that comes out of real life. You don't want that crawling into your back seat and traveling home with you.
Yeah.
I mean, unless of course you're absolutely adamantly you've got to have that occur so that you've got that sense of you understand that there's an afterlife. Joel and I don't really have that worry, and I understand how people would, even with a negative experience, feel that they were validated in their faith, but that there's an afterlife. But we can guarantee you, without you having to go and put yourself through a chipper shredder, there is an afterlife. There is stuff out there. There is more to this world than the stuff you can see. So you don't need to have a negative experience to validate that there's positive stuff out there. It's just not really all that necessary. I promise. Aisha, you're quiet. I hope we're not talking over you.
Listening. You can hear me?
Yeah, we definitely can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh.
But we don't.
Okay.
If you got something to say, we don't want to keep talking over you.
No, I'm just listening.
Yeah, and that's also for anybody else that's out there listening. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to me, mail them to me at iansmagicoak@gmail.com. It's spelled the same way as the channel, with a K for magic, and you can send us any questions, or if you have any if you need any help with any, you can reach out to us on Gmail or Facebook. You can look us up on Facebook. You'll be able to contact Joel or I there, and we respond to all our messages.
If you do the Facebook, our Facebook page, you'll end up having, like, sometimes I like just to watch the conversation, but I usually have some input too. But yeah, just remember I work night shift, so I'm usually up kind of in the wee hours. So for those that are in different time zones, or just those who work night shift, more than likely, we try to answer them pretty quickly.
So you'll get one of, or either of us, or both of us answering the questions together. I didn't even know that the Facebook page worked that way. It was so embarrassing. I'm like, I had to ask one person, are you seeing that we're like separate responses? Because on this end of things, it doesn't attach our faces or accounts to the responses. I was thinking that I might have been hitting enter extra times and sending extra messages or something, because Joel would say stuff that I would have said. I'm like, did I send this message and I didn't know? Really? It's like, because I know I would have said this not quite this way, but I would have said this that way. Maybe it was me. Possibly it was me. No, it wasn't me.
Yeah. I was wondering about that too when I was messaging. I was like, I'm just gonna put it out there, but I was hoping, I didn't know if it was saying like it was just in Magical, or if it was like my name. So it was good to have that confirmation.
It is a weird experience. Facebook is not as user friendly for these kinds of pages as I thought it would be. I'm not very fond of Facebook in general, but with the way that these kind of pages work and moderation is just so confusing. And they'll keep telling you got a notification even long after you've responded to it. And if you've got multiple devices that access it, like my phone will still say there's a brand new message when I've cleared it from on my computer, and then I'll go hunting for it in the phone, and it'll tell me on Messenger and Facebook separately, because there's the Messenger and the Facebook are separate programs, because why not? We want to have double the presence on your phone. Bad ideas, bad design, and have to clear both of them before I'm sure that everything's good. So I'll check the same message up to like 5 times.
So what is there anything that anybody's looking forward to coming up this week? I mean, I'm super stoked about doing the real life Hollywood, of course. I'm super excited about that.
And the next one is going to be on the Enfield haunting. For those of you who have not seen it, there's a movie which is loosely based on it, and then there is a TV series which is considerably more tightly adheres to it, which I believe is on Hulu. You can see it on Hulu, and that's where I saw it. And the guy who plays Wormtail from Harry Potter is Maurice. Oh, forgotten his last name. He played the primary investigator that came to the home to see what was going on with Janet and her family.
You should put the names of the shows in the description. That way people can reference that. And the description to this.
I'll put it in the low bar. I'll just have to go. It was a series done on CBC television in England, and it came over on. They leased it to Hulu. I hope it's still there because I saw this months ago. It was really, really quite well done. There are some differences, obviously, from real life, but I've also at one point in time put links up for the. There was a documentary that was done. Maurice Grosse. There we go. Maurice Grosse. I couldn't remember. They say Morris, but it's Maurice. And the guy he was working with, Guy. I'll remember his name later too. And there were a bunch of these documentaries that were done, and I pieced together so much information. This haunting was so drastic, and to this day, it's still going on. There was a kid who went to the house that lives in China, and he was going to all these different metaphysical hotspots and paranormal hotspots, and they spoke to the people who are living there, and they're going to be moving really soon. Now, keep in mind, these are people who are really down on their luck. They live in these places. This is a council house. A council house you can think of, if you're in America, is Section 8 housing, where they pay a huge portion of the rent for you, and the places are not in the best of shape. And oftentimes when people move out, they're going to leave all of their furnishings behind. And that's what generally happens with some of these homes. And when Janet and her family moved in there, the place was still partly furnished with some of the original furnishings that a person who had left behind when they died. And when the paranormal events started, it was actually at the time when Janet's older sister began to have her monthly visit begin. And they really went into high gear when Janet started having hers, which is previous discussion about how girls who are gifted, for some reason, they hit the ground running as soon as their menses come in. And it's a phenomenon that nobody understands. When boys get poltergeist events, it can happen younger or it can happen older, and there's no coinciding trigger event. But when girls get it, and they do have these events happen to them much more often than boys do, it usually is right when the menses start, and it's like, and they're off, bang, and things just get horrifyingly bad.
What is poltergeist? What does that mean?
Poltergeist
just haunted?
Well, no, it means noisy ghost. Poltergeist, nobody's exactly certain, and Joel and I have never been able to go to an event where a poltergeist occurs, because they just, they don't invite you in, but we can feel them from a distance. And I know I definitely can, because there was one in San Pedro, which I was talking with Joel about, that had happened in 1989. He wasn't here at the time in California, but I rode my bike all the way out to see it. And the house got torn down. It's gone. But there was a poltergeist event happening there where this ghost of a man hated the people who were in the house, and literally, not figuratively, tried to kill one of the photographers. You can actually look this up. The San Pedro haunting poltergeist. I don't remember the address. I think it was on 11th Street. And every time I go past there, because the activity is still there, even though they tore down the old house and built up a new one, the ghost is still there. And it hung this guy by his neck by a string that was not, or I should say a cord that was not around his neck before. It put it around his neck, goozled him, twisted this thing up repeatedly, then hung him from a nail that was above, that was near the top of the arch of one of the beams in the attic. And what these things are is they're noisy ghosts, or they're empowered ghosts, or they are metaphysical beings that are created by energy that's going wild from somebody, like especially a female who suddenly reaches a point where it suddenly releases. In fact, in more cases than in men, they've found that these things occur to women. And it can even happen later in life to women, like the lady in San Pedro. It happened to her when she was in her 20s. It had to do with, she'd been in a stressful environment, an abuseful relationship, just got out of it, having children, etc. It's the same thing with the lady in the entity who had a similar thing occur to her. Now I'm going to see if I can't find a picture of what I was talking about with the guy being hung. Let's see. By the way, this is your warning if you are squeamish or can't stand to see such things. The guy did live, but it was dangerous. And let's see. Joel, keep him busy while I'm trying to find this picture.
Keep them busy. I like how you said that. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've never had ever had a personal experience with the poltergeist, and I'm okay with that. I've had enough experience with a lot of different things. Well, I guess maybe there might have been, I don't know if it would be a poltergeist, but one of the nursing homes I worked in has some weird activities that time. Electric beds that are working, they're moving themselves up and down, even though they're not plugged in. It was kind of messed up. Oh, that's a lovely picture.
That's the one.
And just like electronic devices in that electrical devices in that room just starting up and on all by themselves. I remember distinctively having like that happen during the daytime in one of those rooms, and after somebody had recently passed away. I was good. That room didn't bother me too much, but for like a week or two, there was a lot of strange things happening in that room. But I don't necessarily know if I would call that like poltergeist kind of activity.
That's residual event stuff. Like with the poltergeist, like with this. For those of you who can see my screen share, this is the gentleman who he actually took a page from Zach Bagan's book. Now I'm going to expound on this one continuously. The provocation thing. Okay. Don't do the provocation. This guy used to be a skeptic. And as you can see, here's the reason why he's not a skeptic anymore. And the date, even, you can see it was September 4th, 1989. Old digital stamps on the pictures. This is the original picture. The guy was trying the other person got this picture because this guy here is the photographer. The other guy found his camera on the ground because he got yanked away, picked up the thing and started using the flash because the lights wouldn't work. He picked up a flashlight, wouldn't work. Picked up another flashlight, wouldn't work. Was reaching around for something, found the camera next to his foot, picked it up and started taking pictures. This was the third picture. And quickly ran back there because the guy was going to get him down. So scary, but that is a true event. And that's the closest I've ever gotten to an actual poltergeist event. Now, another famous poltergeist event would be the Carmichael haunting with the lady who was the original story behind the entity. She started being raped by an entity, and the entity itself also it seemed to be directable. She actually later on turned it against one of the staff of Larry Taft, Dr. Larry Taft, and because she had a relationship with him and he broke it off. And so this guy got assaulted by the entity in his car, I believe. And I'll have to look this up, but I was watching an interview on YouTube with Dr. Taft, and he said that the gentleman was very apologetic to her after that, because she was apparently he was a little bit brusque with the brush off of her, because he'd changed his mind about the being in a relationship with her. It was more professionally driven than amorously driven, which is an unfair thing to put somebody through. So nobody knows if the poltergeist can be directed by the person who's suffering from it, but they do know that for some reason the person is the focus of it, but it can turn outwards against other people if that person is threatened by someone else. And in the Enfield haunting, that occurred to Maurice Grosse, and it happened to Guy Lyons. I think his last name is Lyons with a Y. Whenever it looked like they were going to have they were going to go after the girls or try and call the thing into question. In fact, in the CBC movie miniseries, it was a two-parter. Guy started to provoke it, and he started getting hit really hard with Lego bricks. He was claiming that the kids were doing it. No, and if you've ever thrown a Lego brick, you can't really throw these things hard. And yet he got hit with them hard enough to get bruises. These things are tiny. They're little pieces of plastic. The only way you can hit somebody with it hard enough to do damage is if you've got a slingshot with some serious rubber on there and you go, what pack? Okay, that's it. And these kids didn't have that. And the kids were hunkered against the wall trying to make sure that they could dodge these things, because they'd been struck by them as well, and their mother also. So they knew when these events happened to get the hell out of the way, and that they could get worse too, that marbles would be picked up and thrown. And one of the poltergeist events with that occurred was when marbles could get launched. But have you ever dropped a marble on a hardwood floor? It bounces even though it's made out of glass. Not very much, but it will bounce. And yet in that house, when these things would drop it and they would hit the ground, there was no bounce. They'd hit the ground like they were sucked down to the ground like a magnet. They go whack and stay there. Wherever they landed, they would stay, not bounce, not roll. And they took lots of evidence of this, but pictures wouldn't come out. The poltergeist would actively go after cameras. And this is the case in the Entity, the Enfield haunting, the haunting in San Pedro, which I'm gonna have to find what Larry Taft called that one as well. And these things are they know that photographs are coming, and they don't seem to want them. And for that reason alone, people will say, "Oh, well, I don't know if I believe it." Well, okay, I can see why you're a skeptic. You're one of those people who's got to see it for yourself. But you know what? You don't see gravity, and you believe in that. And Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyons collected a ton of auditory, sound recordings, tons of the stuff. And the same thing for Dr. Taft and his crew in the case of the Entity, etc. And they did catch some serious pictures of these things. But for the most part, the poltergeist would assault the cameras. They would destroy them, break them, mess with the cameras, turn them out of the way. We've also seen evidence of this with the Ghost Adventures. Things that don't want to be recorded can simply reach up, smack the camera, and it's gone. Or shut it down, drain the battery.
Knock it off angle.
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Oh, look, the camera's still feeding, but it's pointed in a different direction.
Or knocked over at the ceiling. That's happened in several of their investigations. These guys are really good at setting the tripod under it, right? But all of a sudden the thing will just be over on its side pointing at the ceiling if the thing doesn't want to be recorded.
Yeah.
Or if it thinks that they've got enough shots, like they did this in this one building. They caught a door opening, and then the thing went up and went pow, knocked the camera off, and it was pointed at the stairwell away from where it was moving. And then you hear all these footsteps walking away from the camera. It's not to say that the Ghost Adventures don't get some really good evidence. It's just for some reason, it's not when they're holding the camera in their hand.
It's the best time. It's the best. The best.
So welcome back, Aisha. Sorry, I was answering your question while it looked like you got knocked off. Everything okay?
I was about to ask you guys, was I the only one knocked off, or did everybody get knocked off and come back on?
No, it was only you, dear. It happened right about the middle when I was giving you the explanation. Poltergeist is just German for noisy ghost.
Okay.
But we don't know exactly how to define it because there's so it's so difficult to actually describe. There's some things that they do, and Joel and I have never been close enough to actually see if it's an actual ghost or if it's just a telekinetic event brought on by somebody's abilities lashing out at people and even themselves. I just do know that once it's hit an area, the effect is perpetual. Like in San Pedro. Once it occurs, it keeps on occurring. Like nobody stays in the Enfield haunting. Nobody likes to stay in that San Pedro house. If it's centered around a person, like the Carmichael lady for the entity, it follows her around until she died some years ago. It's one of the hardest to define events. Anyway, I think we've braked this subject over the coals enough, so I'm going to close this out and say, if you guys have any questions, just feel free to email them to us. Contact us on Facebook. If you like what we do here, comment, subscribe, hit that like button, share it with friends, share it to other social media. We did have the chat page open so that if you had questions live, you could have asked them right here whenever we do Segue Saturdays or Segue Sundays, the Segue events. Let's see. And we hope to be able to get the true paranormal stories from Hollywood out. We're going to be doing the last 3, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and should be getting some more segues out there. If you guys want to join in, or if you have questions, or if you want to ask stuff live on air, you want to come onto the show, just send us an email, shoot us an email. Also, if you want to be part of the Paranormals and Coffee interviews, if you do stuff for your local community and you want to get out there and get well known, I'd like to interview you and help you spread how effective you are and great things that you do. I do, however, have a restriction on if you are someone who likes to use a Ouija board and that's how you do your thing. Please, that's the kind of thing we really don't want to put on here, because there's a lot of people out there who think that it's cool because you're flirting with danger, and we don't pass that around, because there's no story that you've ever heard that comes out great with, I pulled out a Ouija board and was in the middle of the graveyard talking to spirits, when it doesn't lead to good events. We're trying to show the other side of paranormal, not just the bad. So like, comment, subscribe, and stay blessed, everybody. See you next time.